Welcome to the deep dive. We take your source material, cut through the noise, and really get to the heart of what you need to know. Today, we're diving into, well, a creature many of us think we know pretty well, the shark. But, for most people, what we know about sharks, it comes straight from Hollywood. Decades of fear, jump scares, all focused on those teeth. Our sources today, though, they paint a really, really different picture. So our mission here is to move past that fear, that ingrained image, and uncover the truly essential role sharks play. It's about keeping the whole ocean running.
It really is a total flip in perspective. The core idea we kept seeing in these sources, sharks aren't the monsters. They're actually the ocean's guardians.
Yeah.
And what's absolutely critical to get is that the sources show pretty convincingly that without them, without this top predator doing its job, the whole system we depend on, fisheries, reefs, biodiversity, it just starts to unravels
Yeah.
systematically.
That's a huge challenge to how we usually see things. We're kind of taught to look for danger in the water, right? But the sources immediately hit us with this contrast. The real threat isn't lurking down there waiting for us. It's in our nets.
Exactly. And to really feel the weight of that threat, we need to first lay out the basic science, the ecology that's in our materials. See, in any healthy ecosystem, that top predator, it does way more than just eat. In the ocean, sharks are like key regulators. Yes, they control populations, but maybe more importantly, they tend to pick off the sick, the weak, the slower individuals in a prey group.
So that's the policing you mentioned. But why is that so crucial? I mean, what really happens, practically speaking, if that top level just disappears? Why should someone, listening in London or Tokyo care if a great white population somewhere else crashes?
Okay, this is really the absolute key takeaway for you today. It's a domino effect, ocean collapse, and it's faster and more predictable than you might think, affecting everyone. Our sources detail the mechanism quite clearly. Step one, sharks disappear. So they stop regulating that next level down, often smaller predators, think groupers or snappers. So what happens next? Those mid-level fish numbers, they explode. There's nothing keeping them in check anymore. But here's the crucial bit people often miss. Those mid-level predators then just hammer their prey. And their prey are often the vital herbivores, the grazers like parrotfish or surgeonfish.
Right, so the chain doesn't just shrink, it gets turned completely upside down. If the herbivores vanish or the numbers plummet, what moves in?
Algae. And this is where the coral reefs get hit hard, really hard. Without parrotfish constantly grazing the reef, which is their job, basically algae growth just goes wild. That algae literally smothers the corals, chokes the life out of the reef system. And remember, reefs are the nurseries, the breeding grounds, the safe zones for countless fish stocks we rely on globally.
So, the loss of the shark leads, eventually, to the collapse of the coral reef, which then leads to a crash in overall fish stocks everywhere. Wow. It's not just some slow fade, it's a systematic breakdown, all starting because one key player is missing. It really makes you think. Every healthy ocean out there has this silent work of sharks underpinning it all. They're like the invisible engineers.
And what's also fascinating is how this affects the genetics of the fish they hunt. By taking out the sick and weak, like we said, sharks actually ensure the remaining schools are strong, healthy, genetically robust. Maintaining that balance isn't just about numbers. It needs active, intelligent predation. It's this constant, vital process ensuring long-term health, not just short-term numbers.
Okay, so we've established they're absolutely essential for keeping things stable. But if they're the ocean's silent guardian, who's attacking them? Let's pivot now, because the statistics here are frankly shocking. They really highlight the immediate danger.
They are deeply disturbing, yeah. And it brings us right back to that strange gap between our fear and the actual reality.
The sources hit us with this number. It's a real turning point in understanding this. Up to 100 million sharks killed every single year. 100 million. Just let that sink in. I mean, to compare, that number totally dwarfs the number of humans killed by sharks in, like, the last 100 years.
Yeah, that staggering number. It's driven by a few complex things, and this is where our nets gets complicated. Targeted killing, mostly for fins, driven by demand for soup and traditional medicine, that's a huge part of it. A massive issue. But it's definitely not the only issue. A huge chunk of that 100 million actually comes from big industrial fishing operations. They catch sharks completely by accident. It's called bycatch. Think about commercial longlining. They set out lines, sometimes miles long, with thousands of hooks, aiming for tuna or swordfish. But sharks get caught too, huge numbers, indiscriminately, and they're often just thrown back dead or dying. The sheer scale of this industrial bycatch, it's a silent massacre, really, and it's arguably far worse than the targeted hunting.
So it's this double whammy then, people fishing specifically for shark products and this enormous unintentional slaughter because they just get tangled up in gear meant for other fish. But you also mentioned something else earlier, products people buy without even realizing they contain shark.
Exactly. And this makes the problem trickier because it spreads the demand into completely different areas outside of food. People are inadvertently funding this decline by buying certain supplements, things with squalene, for example, which comes from shark liver oil, or chondroitin, often from shark cartilage. You find these in anti-aging creams, some cosmetics, joint health supplements. Pretty common stuff.
Supplements and cosmetics. So you could be buying something thinking it's good for your health or your appearance, and you're actually contributing to the potential collapse of ocean ecosystems. The sources are really sounding the alarm here, giving us a stark warning about how fast this is happening. They're saying at this rate, many shark species could genuinely vanish within our lifetime.
And this brings up such a profound point about us, about human behavior. The sources point to this powerful um, cognitive dissonance. It's weird. On one side, you've got movies and sensational news painting sharks as the ultimate bad guy in the ocean, the monster we need to get rid of. But then you look at the actual data, the reality. Sharks are ancient survivors. They made it through 5 mass extinctions. Yet now, we're driving them towards extinction incredibly fast. They should, quite rightly, fear us.
Wow. That really does flip the script on danger, doesn't it? The sources seem crystal clear. The real threat isn't their teeth. It's our nets, our industrial fishing, and maybe even our shopping habits. We're the apex predator causing the problem here. Okay, so what does all this mean for you listening right now? If these sources are right, if sharks really are the guardians of ocean balance, we need something practical. Knowing this, what are, say, 3 specific things you can actually do right now based on this pretty profound understanding?
Yeah, moving from just knowing this stuff to actually doing something is key. And the sources offer 3 pretty clear, manageable actions. It shows that, fighting this doesn't necessarily mean you need to change global policy yourself. It's more about informed daily choices.
Okay, number 1 sounds direct, and maybe the most important. Avoid products. We have to consciously step away from the demand side of that 100 million a year number. So yeah, shark fin soup is the obvious one to avoid. But also, maybe asking more questions about where seafood comes from, demanding transparency, and critically reading labels on those supplements and cosmetics.
Right. You really have to look for those hidden ingredients we talked about. Actively avoid anything with squalene or chondroitin unless the source is clearly stated as non-shark, maybe plant-based or synthetic. Just cut off the demand where you can, especially for these kind of convenience products driving so much of the decline.
Okay, action number 2. This one's about changing the conversation, fighting back against that fear narrative. The sources say, share the truth. You listening now, you have the facts. You understand the domino effect, the ecological cascade. Tell people. Tell them why sharks are vital. Actively push back on those Hollywood myths when you hear them. Replace monster with guardian in people's minds.
Exactly. And the third action point, support conservation. Find reputable shark conservation groups and, if you can, support them. Especially look for groups working on the bycatch issue, lobbying for stricter rules on industrial fishing, because like we said, that's often the biggest, quietest killer. They're the ones really fighting on the front lines to try to restore the balance we've messed up.
So avoid the products, share the truth, support conservation. By doing those things, you shift from being maybe a passive bystander, maybe even a little scared of that shadow in the water, to actively helping protect the ocean's key engineer. The takeaway from this deep dive seems incredibly clear. The sources are urging us, basically, forget monster, think guardian.
Yeah, we really need to recognize that this is a creature that asks almost nothing from us, maybe just to be left alone mostly, and in return, it quietly keeps the entire ocean system stable. Balance needs guardians, and right now those guardians desperately need our help.
We definitely came into this thinking about a scary fish, maybe, and we're leaving realizing we've been talking about something fundamental to life on Earth. But this does leave us with a final thought, something to chew on, maybe extending beyond just the ocean.
Right. If the shark is the silent guardian of the marine world, and maybe we only truly recognize how essential it is when it starts disappearing, what about other ecosystems? What other misunderstood top predators or keystone species? Maybe wolves in forests, elephants on the plains might also be quietly holding things together. Are we overlooking their crucial roles too, perhaps until it's dangerously late for them? And for the balance they maintain, think about the guardians beyond the water,